Meet PitchDB, the ultimate platform for speakers looking to make their mark on podcasts, conferences, and media outlets. PitchDB provides access to over 3 million platforms, ensuring you find the perfect avenue for your message. With AI integrations, your bios and pitches are tailored uniquely to each opportunity, giving you the edge you need. Join now at pitchdb.com.
Welcome to Your Brand Amplified, the podcast where we interview marketers, publicists, and brands to learn their stories, what makes them tick, and tips and tricks that make a difference. Today, I have another podcaster on with me, but more importantly than podcasting, Ryan Englin helps disseminate and dispel myths about hiring practices, helps people find better ways to hire, and especially in an area that we really need, which is the trades.
Oh, yeah.
That are unsexy, that people forget about, but that are so important. So thank you, Ryan, for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Me too. So I want to first get into your background. I saw that you've worked for small businesses. I know your father was in the trades and working long hours, and that you've also worked in corporate, right? For different finance companies. You've had a wide swath of experience. So what brought you back to your own company, Core Matters, and being passionate about these topics?
Well, I wish I could tell you that just one day I woke up and I was like, ooh, I know what I'm supposed to do with my life. I'm going to go do that. It's not how it worked at all. When I burned out at corporate, I struggle with corporate because I have a lot of opinions and they often don't agree with my boss or the rest of the department.
Fair.
So I was like, I'm going to go do my own thing for a while. And the only thing that I was really excited about was marketing and human behavior, psychology, all the stuff that goes into marketing. And so I had this belief that one of my dad's biggest challenges in growing his business was that he didn't have enough business.
Oh.
And I've heard that cash solves a lot of problems in business. And so my belief was if I could work with these companies that are owned by people like my dad and help them grow their revenue, we're going to solve all their problems. And it was a couple years in that clients were like, yeah, we're good. We don't need any more leads. We don't need any more leads. We don't need any... I'm like, what's going on? And they're like, we would love more leads, but we don't have the people to service them because it was all in the trades. And so I remember there was one client, I don't know if you've ever been to Phoenix.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In July, when it's 120 and you cook an egg on the sidewalk or bake cookies in your car. It was an HVAC company that called me and said, turn off the leads. We don't need any more. I was like, what do you mean you don't need any more? Like, this is your prime time. Go make some money. And they said, we are booking 3 weeks out. So imagine if your AC goes out in Phoenix in July, like you're not going to wait 3 weeks. So they felt like they were just wasting money. And when I sat down with them to figure out what's happening, they said, we got 4 empty trucks. We're burning out our current techs because they can't keep up with the demand. We don't know what to do. And I thought, well, I don't know if this was genius or insanity, but it was one of the two. I said, well, I can solve that problem. After all, recruiting is a marketing issue.
Right.
So I took my decade in corporate and my background in marketing, everything else, and I set out to help them build these trucks with good, high quality techs. 3 weeks later, they call me and they're like, turn the leads back on. We filled the trucks.
Yay.
And I was like, yay, I saved a client. And then it was a while, I started calling other clients. I was like, hey, you struggling with techs? You struggling with getting people? And yeah, they all were.
Mm-hmm.
So I started doing that. And then I realized this is way more fun than lead gen and email and websites and all that. So over the next couple of years, I developed a system called the CoreFit Hiring System, which is our proven process of techniques and tips and systems that help them attract, hire, and retain better people. And I've been doing that for the last 8 years.
Well, that's amazing. Kudos to you for falling in. I think that's often what happens, right? We start something and then we go, oh, wait, it's actually this part of it that clicks. And this is the thing that we're really supposed to be offering. And this is what really drives us and fills us with joy and passion to keep doing our work and not make it feel like work.
Mm-hmm.
I work for my day job, right? Like with a lot of, podcasting is my day job and I am a professor, but I also work with an agency that focuses on adult basic education and workforce development. And this is exactly the kind of people we're trying to help get to the right certification programs in these schools so that they can go out and get jobs in the trades. A lot of partnerships with employers and doing videos on the success stories. So I want to hear from you and your perspective and everything you've learned. What are some of the things that people are, I don't want to say doing wrong, but where are companies not offering? How are they?
They're doing it wrong.
Okay.
It's okay. They're doing it wrong.
All right.
I think that I already mentioned this, but I think the big shift that employers need to make is to understand that you can't go looking for people. You're not turning over rocks or peeking around corners going, there you are, come work for me. Yeah, that might have worked 20 years ago when we didn't have the internet.
Englin.
But see, job seekers don't print off a dozen resumes and dress nicely and go knock on doors like they did when I was looking for a job out of school. They don't do that anymore. So looking for them is a very difficult activity. It's never going to work out because the people you need aren't there. They're gainfully employed somewhere else. Their social behaviors and habits all bring them online. And so we have to look at online and say, okay, if recruiting is truly a marketing activity, what am I doing to attract the right people? But they haven't made that shift yet. They still think, well, if I just post the ad that we wrote 10 years ago on Indeed, I'll find somebody. Or if I just tell enough people, hey, I need to hire, people want jobs. And what I found in the trades is that there are a lot of people that are committed to the trades, that are committed to the craft, that they just love the industry. But if you want to bring new people in, you have to show them that it's not their dad's construction company or their dad's plumbing company, because they grew up in an environment where overtime was mandatory. You worked crazy hours. There was horrible seasonality where, mom and dad would disappear for 90 to 100 hours a week sometimes, and they weren't treated well. And I think that the industry as a whole needs to take a step back and says, we have a branding issue as an industry.
Right.
And we need to solve that. So when I say they're doing it wrong, it's because they haven't changed in 20 years.
Yeah. And that's so fascinating because these are, just thinking about a few years ago, we're all stuck at home and things were breaking out our houses and there weren't enough people to come fix the plumbing or the HVAC or these other issues that we need. These are jobs that are never going to go away. I don't see a computer being able to come and, maybe someday a computer will come repair something. But to your point, these aren't the same jobs. There are, like, if you're in automotive, right? Now you're using computers for diagnoses. These are very different and the skill set is different and it's almost elevated. So, but it also takes out some of that preconceived notion of the kind of office you're going to be in and the kind of work that you have to do and that expectation of overtime. And I would even say people make really good money doing these jobs. Better than probably I make, in my job.
I know a lot of techs that bring home 6 figures a year, and you don't have to be a 25-year veteran to be able to do that kind of money. 5-7 years in the trade and you can make really good money and get a good education and have skills that will help you in life. That's the other thing. Like, you can take this and not need to hire a technician anymore and become a little more handy around the house. And so when you can't get someone to come out to your house to fix it, you could probably do that too because someone has invested in you and taught you those skills.
So one of the things to talk about, the labor crisis is a myth. So you're using your techniques as a marketer to find the right leads, the right employees. What are some of the biggest success stories that you've seen and those aha moments that employers have had?
There's a couple of things that I've learned. And the first one is, if you're not attracting the right people to your business, and everybody has a different definition for the right people, right? But the one thing they all agree on is it has nothing to do with turning a wrench, has nothing to do with equipment, has nothing to do with performance. Right people is always, if you ask anybody in a leadership role, they always will tell you they show up on time. They got a good work ethic. They take care of the customer. They make sure that the job's clean. They watch out for their teammate. They're safe. It's all these behaviors that make the right people. Yet when they go out there to attract the right people, it's must have 5 years experience, must be able to lift 50 pounds. It's like all the basic bullet points that's about doing the work, but it's not about who you need to be to succeed in the work.
Yeah.
And so if they're not attracting the right people, I want anybody listening right now to take a step back and go, are we attractive to the right people? Because most likely you aren't. If all you're attracting is bottom feeders and that's the only people applying for your jobs, you're probably only attracted to bottom feeders. If you want to attract rock stars, you've got to have a rock star brand, you have to start thinking about what message do I put out there? Like the Yankees does not struggle to recruit, right? They just don't.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of teams, and I'm not going to hurt anybody's feelings right now, but there are a lot of teams that struggle to get top talent because they have a branding issue. They have a reputation issue. And it's the same thing happens with companies.
Yeah. Is that part of the work you do when somebody comes to you, they say, I have this issue, and you're able to like make a diagnosis for them and step back and say, okay, we need to work on this, this, and this before we can find the right people?
Recruiting is marketing. It really is. Retention is marketing. If you think about it, marketing agencies, they spend a lot of time and energy on helping companies attract and retain customers. It's the same thing here. So we have a process. Once we've identified what we call the CoreFit profile, in the marketing world, it's a persona or an avatar, right? But who is the right person and what behaviors do they have? Like, how do you know they're the right person? How do we test for that? Once we have that, we have a process we call the job seeker journey audit. So we put ourselves into the shoes of that ideal candidate. And we say, now, if I was looking for a job, what do I find? What looks good? What doesn't look good? When I come across your company, do I like what I see? Or is it missing? I mean, we do a lot of work with construction companies, for example, and they always put their projects they're most proud of on their website. But the anchor projects, we call them, those big ones that put them on the map, they come around once a decade. Mm-hmm. What about all the little projects that you've worked on? Because those are the ones that show people you're growing and you're healthy and you've got a steady stream of work for them. But they forget to put those on their website. So you go to their website, you're like, well, this hasn't been updated in 7 years. Are you even in business anymore? But see, they don't think about that because they don't look at this as a marketing issue. They look at it as an HR issue.
Right.
And HR has checked all the boxes. HR has done all the compliance work. They're still not getting the right people.
That's what we work on a lot is the psychographic and demographic profile, right, of I'll use the word personas because that's what we use, but of different student populations and what are their motivations. And so then how do we message them appropriately so they know there is something for them and how to get to it immediately instead of having to go to a website and be overwhelmed with all these other things that might not apply. Yeah. So I love that you're talking about this and the consistency and just being able to show, like, here's what you will be doing on a consistent basis. We might have these other projects that are marquee and huge, but if you want to know what a day in the life is.
What's it really like?
Yeah.
That's what I want to know. I've had some people ask me on podcasts, like, what would you tell job seekers that are looking? What do they do? And you already mentioned it. Like, that personal brand is so important. Recruiters will make a decision on your resume in 6 seconds. So if you want your resume to stand out, you've got to think like a recruiter. So put yourself in their shoes. What are they looking for? They're looking for a certain brand. When it gets to the hiring manager, they're going to Google you. Just know that. So instead of just going, I hope they don't find anything, go Google yourself. See what they find. You know, that cake stand from the frat party 10 years ago that's still on social media maybe needs to go away.
Right. Yeah. That's one of the things that drives me crazy sometimes is talking to younger people and saying, hey, you might not want to have pictures from your bachelorette party up on your social media, or at least make them private. Not everything needs to be public. And you also, if you are looking for work, you want to make sure that you're showing up, yes, authentically and as who you are, but that you're putting your best professional face forward too.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, think about it. They're Googling the company to see if that's where they want to work. Guess what? Exactly. The company's going to Google you. So, absolutely.
Now, how do you see the world of interviewing changing? So what are some interview strategies that you recommend that clients use? Because you've obviously funneled the right people, hopefully, but then that process, the next step.
Yeah. So interviewing is my favorite part of the recruiting process. So in our system, the CoreFit Hiring System, there's 7 components that we dig into these different areas with employers and help them get really clear on their systems and processes. Interviewing is the one I geek out on the most. I love it because that's where we get to actually create a human-to-human relationship. Everything else is technology before this. And so now we get to sit down and really get to know the person and really get to understand. And what we're looking for, I call the fit. But a lot of people would say, hey, people want to feel like they belong here. How do we create that sense of belonging?
100%.
Most people are going to spend more time with the people they work with than with their loved ones. So how do we make sure it's a good fit and that they're going to enjoy working together? And so we're creating a relationship, whether we want to call it that or not. It is a relationship. Gallup says that one of the greatest indicators of whether or not someone is engaged at work is whether or not they have a best friend at work. So if we know that, and we also believe, like most people believe, that people don't leave jobs, they leave people. Heard that before, they leave bosses and managers. So if we know that's the case, that they leave their boss, and we know that they want a best friend at work, we need to spend time building a relationship with them, understanding how they behave and how they think, how we behave and how we think, and make sure that there's alignment. So the interview needs to be less about can they do the work and more about will they feel like they belong here, and will we feel like they belong here?
I love that you're lifting that up. Just the whole culture aspect of work. And we've talked about emotional intelligence. You've talked about so many things that people forget about. And cultural fit is so important. And I think one thing that I found is sometimes you think it's a cultural fit. You think that you're in the right place, but then maybe your job changes a little bit, or your contract changes, or something changes in the ecosystem, and then you don't feel that. And if nobody's there to help make sure and bridge that, to try to say, oh, okay, let's put you over here. Let's redirect. Let's make sure this is going appropriately. Then that's part of the reason why people leave.
Well, and I think that's why authenticity is so important. You know, people tell me all the time, oh, these candidates, they show up and they're lying to me and they're not telling me the truth and all this. And I'm just like, well, you do that too. You know, when you go, hey, we got someone we're really excited about coming in. Can you hide Jimmy in the back? I don't want them to meet Jimmy until they're here. You know what? And usually Jimmy's a family member or something like that, right? It's like, why do we do that?
Yeah.
We had a client years ago. I was sitting in an interview and I'm watching him interview this really sweet older woman. And I mean, she's just like that person that you just feel comfortable around. And he starts dropping F-bombs in the middle of the interview. And he gets done and he goes, so what'd you think of my interview? Like, it was interesting. Tell me about that. He goes, we curse a lot around here. And I need to know that anybody's going to work here is going to be comfortable with it. Oh, I said, I get that. I love the authenticity. Let's drop some F-bombs in your job ad. He goes white. We can't do that. That's not okay. Now, for those of you listening, it's no longer okay. Indeed has this whole harassment thing. Like, you can't put that in there, but you used to be able to.
Wow.
And he said, we can't do that. There's no way. And I was like, well, then why do you behave that way? Like, you're presenting one thing and behaving another way. That's inauthentic. Yeah. You can't blame them for doing the same thing.
Yeah. Wow.
And they didn't get that. And so many times I see that. People put their best foot forward during the interview because they know that really matters, first impressions, everything else. But then when they show up for work, they just go back to their old ways. And then as employers, we blame them.
Exactly. That, I mean, I don't know that I could think of a better example to illustrate that point than what you just shared.
Yeah.
So now you also are a podcaster. You had a podcast called Blue Collar Culture. And then now you've pivoted to Titans of the Trades, which is still about blue collar culture.
Sure.
What was behind the rebrand or the refresh or is it like?
Yeah. So, I mean, I look at it as the blue collar culture season ran its course. And I really wanted to get away from the idea of just subject matter experts giving more advice and opinions and moving towards people who have climbed the mountaintop.
Oh, yeah.
People who have an amazing story to tell. Because I think that the more I get into this, the more I find that maybe they're not doing everything right, but a lot of people are doing something right. And so I want to bring those titans in, or those people that are very successful inside the trades, and let them share their stories and some of the strategies, the mindset shifts that they had to make in order to get there. And I find that those stories just are so much more relatable for our listeners, and they just enjoy that so much more.
And what's more, when somebody's Googling a company to decide if they want to work there and they come across the CEO on a podcast interview, they're not reading an article that's been edited. They're not seeing a pretty social media post. They're hearing authentically, to go back to that word, from the person that they're going to be maybe not direct reporting to, but working for.
Yeah.
I love that.
And that's one of the ways that we pitch it to these CEOs is, come on, tell your story and send it to your marketing team, because this is marketing.
Yep.
Have them tear it apart and include it with your job ads and in your promotions and on your careers page. So people get to hear from you instead of just guessing or seeing something that the marketing team wrote that isn't real. Like it's authentic.
I personally, because I love podcasting, I've guest, I host, I listen to a lot of other podcasts, and I have written down, I want to talk to that person and work with them someday, or I want to buy this book that they just talked about. So I think it is a great marketing tool. And obviously we know it's omnichannel, so we can repurpose it in a million different ways. Yeah. You have your CoreFit hiring program that you coach people through. Are you still also working with them on the ad side then after they do this work?
So we don't do anything around customer acquisition anymore. But if we do run ads, it's from a recruiting or a branding perspective. So probably one of our best stories is we had a construction company that was a couple hundred people. No one ever heard of them. They do a lot of government contracts. So there really was no reason to have a brand. When we met them, they had one page of a website that someone hacked together 15 years ago. And it had a phone number to fax your application to, or an office address to come drop off your application. And that was it. And so we rebranded them. We helped them get their new website up. We helped them get their messaging right. And everything became about the brand and who they were and what they wanted to accomplish and why they existed and why this was so important. And we ran some ads for them on YouTube, some real basic 6-second bumper ads. And they generated a dozen or so applicants every single month just from these 6-second bumper ads. Like, you can't even say anything except communicate the brand. And it was in 2019, 2020, somewhere in there. And the owner gets a phone call, hangs up because he thinks it's a prank. And they call back and like, this is the Discovery Channel. Mike Rowe is restarting Dirty Jobs and he wants to feature your company on Dirty Jobs. He's like, whatever, this isn't real. Turns out it was. And when they restarted, they were the first company on the premiere episode.
Wow.
And Mike Rowe is on there recorded saying, this is the hardest work I've ever done, which they love.
Yeah.
And because everybody's like, oh, your work's not hard. No, this is the hardest work he's ever done. And they got to meet Mike Rowe. And when they asked, why'd you pick us? And they said, well, because we were looking for someone in your industry and everywhere you were popping up. Like, it was almost impossible not to find you.
You think it?
And it's the same way. Like, they don't struggle with recruiting anymore. They get to select the best people. Now, they're still in construction. It's not easy, but it's easier than it was.
Yeah.
And they've got the recognition and they've used that Mike Rowe Dirty Job stuff for the last couple of years. It's been really valuable for them. And all because we said, let's focus on some advertising and some branding and some things that are all about the company, the employer side of things. It turned into so much more than we ever expected.
Amazing. I love it. Now, I know in the general world of work, especially white collar, there's a lot of discussions around if people can be hybrid, if people have to go into an office, everybody should have a 4-day work week. Are you seeing any of these trends in the blue collar sector as well?
We do see a lot of people that want to be able to do their work remote if it's possible. And I think a lot of the leadership teams subscribe to the mentality of when the factory worker can work from home, then the office people can work from home. Like it's almost like a fairness thing, which I get, because if you're there to support the culture, you're there to support everyone.
Right.
Now, are there going to be times when, yes, you have a white collar job, so you have a knowledge worker job, and yeah, you need an extra day off and you can take it and it's a little more flexible? Yes, I think that exists. But to have this blanket statement that says, oh, you work from an office, you can work from home.
Right.
I think it really depends on the company, the culture, the industry that you're in order for you to have that expectation as a job seeker.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. And let's talk about the jobs that are available. Are you seeing an uptick in the need for skilled workers in what we consider, the blue collar industries?
Well, there is some crazy number, depends on who you talk to. It's somewhere between 600,000 and about 2 million open jobs in the blue collar space that have been that way and cannot be filled. So we need more people coming in. And as the companies grow, as infrastructure ages in this country, we start seeing more infrastructure, more rebuilding. In the service side of things, there's a lot more repairs, especially when money gets tight, right? People are no longer thinking, I'm going to put a new air conditioning on my house. They're thinking, how do I repair the one I have? But what I do see across the board with employers is they are all looking to level up their workforce. So if they're going to bring in someone younger, they need someone who's going to be able to quickly learn the trade.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the days where it's you go into a 4-year apprenticeship program and you're going to take your time and we'll worry about whether or not you can produce later. It's, hey, we're going to coach you and train you. We're going to get you up there, but you got to be able to move more quickly. And so the behaviors have become so much more important. And I think the expectation comes from, we have a generation of digital natives, people that grew up with the internet, cell phones, all that, and they can learn technology so quickly. The expectation is they should be able to learn a skill just as quickly, something to do with their hands.
Yeah, it's one of those fields also where so many people are retiring. And so I'm sure
40% of the skilled labor workforce is expected to retire in the next 10 years. We are not filling that fast.
Yeah.
Not at all. One of the things we do talk about is figuring out ways to be more attractive to women coming into the trades. The reality is that on average, about 4% of the employees in the trades are women.
Oh, okay.
So if you want to solve a labor crisis, stop alienating half the population.
Yeah. I have a cousin who is, she's an electrician and she makes an amazing living at it. And on weekends, if she feels like working a little extra, she can go install people's superchargers, their electric vehicles, right?
Yeah.
But she's been talking about that too with me, about how some of the people come into apprenticeships, they're making a lot of money right off the bat, but then maybe they leave because this other job seems like it'll be a better fit. And then they come back, but they have to start over at the beginning. So I love hearing that. Yes, employers are looking for more of these transferable skills, these soft skills, the people, the emotional intelligence skills, knowing that they can train up their employees.
And they're looking for loyalty too.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. One of the things we coach on when screening is, in the trades especially, there's this mindset of, they've had 6 jobs in the last 2 years, I don't want them. And my argument to that is there are 2 types of people that have had 6 jobs in the last 2 years. There's the person that today was a cook, tomorrow was a used car salesman, the next day they joined the police department academy. That person doesn't know what they want to be when they grow up.
Yeah.
Let them go figure that out
and
then come back. Ignore those people. Like those people, yes. But when you see someone who has had 6 jobs in the last 2 years and they've been in the same line of work or they're in the same industry and you see their career advancing or even staying the same, what I find is that those people are really looking for the right employer. They're looking for the right company culture. They're looking for a place where they feel like they belong. They're looking for the right team. And those people, if you can align with their value system during the interview, end up being amazing employees.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. You have a book on offer, right? Hire Better People Faster. So we have an offer. People want to go to your website, corematters.com/free book. They can download it and get some of the tips that you've learned from working with all these different companies.
Well, so that offer is for me to mail them a copy of the book.
Whoa, okay.
So
wow.
I do ask for a little bit of help with the shipping, but other than that, I send you a free copy of the book.
Nice.
And when you do that, you get immediate access to 12 bonus downloads, PDFs, templates, tools that we actually equip our clients with. So you're actually getting a little bit of the back end secrets when you do that. So some of the stuff that we mentioned in the book and even some new things that weren't mentioned in the book that we've developed since, they'll get immediate access to those downloads. And then my daughter loves helping me ship books. She came to me this morning. She goes, Daddy, have we got any new books yet? So yeah, take advantage of that. I'll mail you a copy of the book and you can get those downloads and read about the entire process.
Fantastic. And that's probably a must read, even if you are solopreneur right now, if you are somebody who's thinking about hiring, maybe you've already hired and made wrong decisions, and it's a good book for you to go back and read and learn how to not make those mistakes in the future. What do you see as your what next?
Well, I think that this message needs to get out there more, which is why I'm podcasting, which is why I wrote the book. And I'm looking to finish all of our internal training. And then I want to start bringing in other coaches and consultants that they can add this as a tool to their toolbox and help put this in front of their clients as well that aren't in an industry that I'm as passionate about. I met somebody last year that they only serve CPAs. And I was like, God bless you, because that does not sound exciting at all to me.
Right.
But they read the book and they're like, I want to implement more of these tools and be able to coach and teach these things as well. So being able to license this to other coaches and consultants so that they can add a tool to their toolbox and go out there and better serve other industries is my next step.
Oh, I love that. This has been such a fun conversation. It's so clear that you're so passionate about what you do. It just really shines through, and that you're also the subject matter expert. So I just really appreciate you coming on and talking about these important issues about how to hire, how to make the right hiring decisions, what to consider, and why people are doing it wrong. I think we've all probably been there, done that, if you've been on the side of hiring people for a business and not necessarily thinking about, are they the right fit? And all of these other questions you're prompting us to ask ourselves and our businesses.
I was just going to say, and just because I'm the subject matter expert doesn't mean I don't still get it wrong. So a lot of what you're going to read about in the book are things that I learned the hard way. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I love that. I mean, I think that's, again, transparency, right? Like authenticity, like showing from what we've learned so that other people don't have to repeat our mistakes.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Now, Ryan, do you have a mantra, a poem, family motto, a verse, any words of wisdom that you live by or that are really resonating with you right now?
Probably not a verse or a mantra, but one of the things that I'm learning through this talk of authenticity is that it does come with a sense of humility and being able to say, hey, you know what? I can be okay not being perfect. As a recovering perfectionist, like that is something that I focus on because I want it to be perfect and I want it to be perfect for all of our clients. And I have to understand that sometimes progress is more important than perfection. Progress
over perfection. I need to remind my students that, because I think that we live in a society where everybody wants to be perfect a lot of the time. It's this push-pull, right, of being authentic and being willing to admit who you are as a whole person, but also wanting to get the perfect grades or do everything, be the best.
Well, not to digress us or go into any rabbit hole, but I think that's the social media issue right now, because social media is somebody's highlight reel.
Right.
And what we do is we look at that and then we compare that to our behind the scenes. And we know that we are not doing those things or thinking like that. But I'm starting to see more YouTubers starting to do behind the scenes stuff.
Oh, nice.
Like, we set this up and this is how we set it up and why we set it up, just to tell a story.
What?
And then we're starting to see a little bit more of the authenticity coming back, because I think we went too far one way. And we created this online platforms, like there's multiple, that basically allow us to go, well, I want everything they have. Their life looks perfect.
Yeah.
What you don't see is it took 16 hours of setup to get that 90-second clip.
Exactly.
And then we compare ourselves to that. So I think that's one of the things we see with students a lot, is that they see these influencers and they see what other people are doing, and they don't realize that behind any success story is 20 years of hard effort. And everybody wants to be like Jimmy Donaldson. I don't know if you know Mr. Beast.
Oh, yes.
Everybody wants, but nobody wants to put in the 20 hours a day for 7 years that he put in as a nobody, getting nothing.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody wants to do that part. They just want to have his success. And I think the same thing happens with employers and employees.
Yep.
I think I see it all the time. We want to be this version of somebody else, but we don't want to do what they did to get there.
Exactly. Oh, so much food for thought. And I know we could probably talk for several more hours about this, but I want to leave a little bit.
We can even touch on retention, how to keep the people once we got them.
Well, we will have to touch on that in a future episode.
Let me know.
I want to leave enough for people to go and check you out and take advantage of your book offer. And just, Ryan, thank you so much for coming on and sharing so much wisdom with us today.
Thank you.
And thank you to everybody who's watching or listening to this episode of Your Brand Amplified. I'll be back again with another amazing guest to share tips and tricks for you to propel your business forward. Want more? Check out amplifywithannika.com or follow me on socials at amplifywithannika.